in Portugal. He has a civil engineer degree from the Technical University in Lisbon, a post-graduation in recuperation of old buildings and monuments from Lisbon Fine Arts School, an MBA from Catholic University of Lisbon, and a PhD in anthropology from Texas A&M University. He worked as a civil engineer until the early 1990s, when he moved into management working for Portuguese government. In 1995, he became manager of Centro Nacional de Arqueologia Náutica e Subaquática, the Portuguese state agency for maritime archaeology, and in 2001, he started his teaching career at Texas A&M and as an invited teacher. From 2002 to 2021, he has the Frederick R. Meyer Second Professor of Anthropology at Texas A&M and Director of the J. Richard Steffi Ship Reconstruction Laboratory. His main researcher interest cluster around early modern European seafaring and history of shipbuilding. He has concluded fieldwork in Brazil, Panama, Puerto Rico, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Croatia, and the United Arab Emirates. So right now we'll be seeing a presentation made by Philip.
Good afternoon. I am very thankful for everybody that participated in the organization of this meeting. I am really sorry I could not be there, but as most of you know, I had a little exercising accident. I broke a vertebra and I am not very mobile these days. I'm going to be talking about Portuguese dugouts, that is the dugouts that were found in Portugal in the last centuries, and not as a specialist. This is very important. I don't know much about this technology. I am just doing a maritime archaeology inventory for Portugal, and these dugouts came up to my knowledge. I made a little list, and I'm presenting it to you in the hopes that you feel tempted to write a book about the Portuguese dugouts. So far I found 12 dugouts that were found in Portugal, of which 7 still survive. 10 of these 12 dugouts were found in the north of the country, in the Lima River, and that is a very interesting thing to take notice. The first dugout that was published, it was numbered 1, by Francisco Alves, the director of the National Museum of Archaeology, was very well documented, well researched, and so I am not going to go in length on the bibliography and the references, but as you know, dugouts are mentioned in the Iberian Peninsula since Strabo, certainly by Isidoro of Sevilla, and the range of carbon dates we have goes from the 4th century, 5th century BCE to the 11th century CE. Let me present the dugouts I inventoried. They have been numbered as they came to my desk, so there is no numbering other than I took over the numbering that was given by Francisco Alves' agency, CNANS, the Center for Maritime Archaeology in Lisbon. And I'm going to make a PDF so that you can use my PowerPoint for your references. The PDF will be available. If you don't manage to discharge it during the meeting, please email me. I will gladly send you the PDF. So the first dugout I want to tell you about today was found in 1876 in the south of the country, and it was lost. This is the 19th century. We don't even know. There is a reference by Estácio da Veiga, and we don't even know where it was found. We know it's 2 kilometers upstream from the mouth of the river. We just do not know exactly where. The text is transcribed and translated for you. and we really don't have more information on these dugouts. The second one is similar, was found in 1880. What's interesting about it is that it was found on the coast, near the sea. Again, is published by Estácio da Veiga, and I marked it in the center of the bay, but all the information we have is that it was found on the bay north of Peniche. This is interesting because this bay is very recent from a geological viewpoint. It was formed after the 14th century and did not consolidate until the 16th. So this is a dugout that was probably much more recent than the ones that we have. Of the 10 dugouts that were found in the Lima River, I am going to start with number 8, which was lost. It's a pity. There's not a lot of information. We just know that it was found near a farm in the southern margin of the Lima River. The one from Gerais do Lima is the one that Dr. Alves published, and it's a very interesting one. It's very well published. All the dugouts range between 4 meters, 3 meters 50, and 7 meters, the big one, the largest one. This one was carbon dated to the 11th century. These carbon dates were done in a laboratory in Portugal, so they are not peer-reviewed directly. It's very interesting, full of details, and it's published, as I said, it was published by Francisco Alves. The second one is in Knaj. It's ready to be studied for anybody that is interested. It was almost 4 meters long, dated to the 7th to the 9th century. So it's a medieval dugout. It has been conserved, and the conservation is published, the conservation process. Number 3 was very broken. It's very interesting because it had frame. It has marks for frames, and one half frame was preserved. It was 4 meters 50. They all have around 50, 60 centimeters in width. And it was also dated to the Islamic period, 7th through 10th century. It's at Knaj, it's being conserved, and also available for study. Number 7 was lost. It is a pity because this one was actually the finder called Knaj, the agency for maritime archaeology, but the person that answered the phone did not write it down. So nobody knew, and the dugout got lost. It was almost 4 meters long, also around 50 centimeters in beam, and they're all made of oak that we know of. Number 4 is very interesting. It's dated to the 4th century BCE. It has mortise and tenon joints pegged in a repair. It was executed with Phoenician joints, and it has been partially published by Francisco Alves and Dr. Eric Reed. Number 10 was found nearby. It was buried almost vertically on the bottom of the river, and it's lost. It's a pity. We lost this one. It was very wide. It had a beam of 70 centimeters. Number 5 was found nearby, these other 2 dugouts. It was 6 meters long and dated to the 4th century BCE. It's very interesting. The bow is carved. There is a little seat at the stern, and it's also partially published by Francisco Alves. Number 6 is 3 meters 60, is a small one. It was not positioned. It's very warped, and it's being preserved at Knaj. This one still survived, and it's preserved. The last one, the last one is the one that was found this year, and that triggered this work. We did it with information from the municipality, which has been wonderful in sharing all the information. It was 5 meters by 76 centimeters is in beam. It's very wide. It is at Knaj for treatment, and it's in very good hands. It's going to be published soon, I am pretty sure. And this is my last slide. It's just about dating and connecting the people that used this technology for more than 1,000 years, certainly, perhaps a lot more than that. They're not all dated, and I am sure we are going to find more. And it would be interesting if CNAS would make these finds public, might get people more interested and more aware, and perhaps would participate other finds that otherwise are not reported. So having said this, I hope I will be connected and be able to answer your questions. If not, let me thank you again for the opportunity to present, and above all, let me thank Miran, who was a dear friend and who had the idea of making this meeting. And I'm really sorry, very, very sorry that he could not be here. I know he would enjoy it very much. So with this, thank you very much for your time.
So, moving on, I would like to ask now Gonçalo Lopes, or Pedro Caleja, or Cristóvão Fonseca, or Raquel Garrão, I don't know which one will be joining us, to join us to the next conference, which is Crossing Banks, the Dugouts of Lima River, northeast Portugal, Testimonies of the Maori Youths.
Não está? É o PowerPoint?
Sim,
É este?
So, these presenters are from Divisão de Património Arqueológico e de Arqueociências of Direção-Geral do Património Cultural, which is the state department of the Portuguese government that deals with nautical archaeology in this case. So, when you are ready.
Thank you. Part of this presentation, there are some similarities with Filipe Castro, but it's another perspective of the same dugout. So, just for clarify. Good afternoon. On behalf of all the authors, I will make the presentation. We would like to start by expressing our gratitude to the organization for the opportunity to present and share our work in the first edition of this major international congress. At the same time, and considering the unfortunate circumstances that befell our colleague and friend Miran Eric, we believe that holding the congress is the best tribute that could be made. The work that led to this presentation was carried out on the Portuguese National Centre for Nautical and Underwater Archaeology, commonly known as CNAS, of the Portugal General Directorate for Cultural Heritage, DGPC. In fact, the work was developed in the scope of the Waterworld project, a bilateral relations program funded by the European mechanism EEA grants with the Norwegian Maritime Museum as a partner. Our object of study is the presentation will be the 7 dugouts found in the Lima River in northern Portugal between 1985 and the present year. We will try to approach the Lima dugouts as a whole in an interdisciplinary perspective and try to fit them into the surrounding cultural landscape. It is therefore a work in progress which the EPC intends to pursue. The first 6 dugouts are under the custody of the CNAS DGPC, and in 2021 were listed as a collection of national interest. They are considered national treasure. In 1985, the dugout Lima 1 was found 1 kilometer downstream from the bridge that connects Moreira de Gerais do Lima to Lanheses. It was 4.35 meters in length, at a midship as a width of 55 centimeters, a height of 40 centimeters, and the thickness ranged between 1.5 to 2 centimeters. It was conceived in a Quercus robur trunk whose radiocarbon dating points to a chronology between the 10th and the 11th centuries AD. It's a flat-bottom dugout that fits a right angle between the bottoms and the sides. In other words, it fits the type A 1/5 R of Beat Arnold's topological proposal. As we approach to the bow and the stern, this transition is less abrupt, becoming rounded at the end. On the bottom features 4 holes, 2 bigger of subrectangular or circular sections and 2 smaller of circular section. Their function must be related to the thickness control during the process, but there are 2 other possibilities. One is that may have served to stop the wood cracking, and the other is that they may have had the function of draining the water and even sinking the craft, a regular process during its lifetime for preservation reasons. In May 1996, in Moreira de Gerais do Lima, a second craft was discovered half buried in the sand in an area very close to where the Lima 1 dugout had been. Its state of preservation is relatively good, slightly twisted and with some cracks on the bottom and sides. It is preserved in its total length, which is 3.83 meters. Amidships has a width of 50 centimeters, a height of 30 centimeters, and the thickness range from 1.1 to 2.1 centimeters. It was conceived in a Quercus robur trunk, whose radiocarbon dating points to a chronology around the 8th/9th century AD. On the flat bottom features at least 2 holes with circular cross-section, whose function was to control the thickness during the process. The transition from the bottom to the sides is abrupt and almost straight, exactly as recorded in Lima 1. Basically, it's a flat bottom dugout with partially rounded sides, seems to correspond to the type A 1/6 R of Beat Arnold typological proposal. In the same year of 1996, but in August, a third dugout was discovered, this time on the Veiga de São Simão, about 9 kilometers downstream from the other 2. It has a length of at least 4.62 meters, at a midship has a width of 59 centimeters, a height of 30 centimeters, and the average thickness is around 1.5 centimeters, but at the edge it can reach 9 centimeters. It was conceived in a Quercus robur trunk, whose radiocarbon dating points to a chronology around the 8th/9th century AD. In general, its state of preservation is fragile, showing several cracks and missing parts, but it has several interesting construction details. For instance, presents a singular curved timber similar to a futtock, located inside of one of the edges near the bow/stern. It was connected to the hull by 2 circular wooden pegs. On the one hand, it could be a correction piece or just a reinforcement piece, placed after it was built to resolve a twisting process that is still partially visible today. On the other hand, it could be a half frame placed originally and acting as a kind of guide when it came to shaping the hull. The circular holes in the bottom of the dugout and near the edges suggest the existence of more of these elements, which have been lost, but only on one side. However, most of these holes are located right at the bottom of the dugout and were drilled during construction as a way of controlling the thickness of the hull during the carving process and were later covered up. Its diameter ranged from 1.5 to 2.1 centimeters. Basically, it's a dugout with round sides corresponding to the type A 1/20th of Beat Arnold's topological proposal. In 2002, a fourth dugout was discovered by chance by a fisherman while fishing lamprey near Lanhês on the shore at a depth of 3 meters and 5 meters from the slope on the north bank. It was half buried in the sand, with the foremost third covered by sediment. Unlike the previous accidental finds, the finder did not collect the dugout but informed the competent authorities. This detail is relevant as it enabled CNAS specialists to establish an intervention protocol and a preliminary observation mission, which confirmed the find, and 2 subsequent missions for in situ protection and removal, respectively. It has a length of 6.95 meters, at a midship has a width of 84 centimeters, a height of at least 56.3 centimeters, and the thickness range from 1.5 to 9 centimeters on the edges. It was conceived also in a Quercus rubber trunk, whose radiocarbon dating points to a chronology around the 3rd century BC. Its state of preservation is good, although the bow hand is separated. Both bow and stern are rounded, with the former extending into a beak. The port side is completely preserved, while the starboard side is preserved only halfway up the bow. In general, dugout Lima 4 feeds bottom flat along almost its entire length and rounded sides. The bow hand has the particularity of ending in a beak, and according to the first interpretations, probably of an aquatic animal. This theory is reinforced by the presence of a circular eyelet which crossed the bow massive from one side to the other. Through this hole passed a cable that was used to pull and drag the craft, as evidenced by the existing wear marks. This dugout also has the port side front repaired plank, which is intended to level the side. This plank was fixed through 3 tenon and mortise joints, very characteristics of Mediterranean classical antiquity shipbuilding, mostly Roman ships. At this respect, in Portugal, the only known remains of these shipbuilding traditions are the Roman timber of the Praça Dom Luís, Lisbon, and the isolated find of a plank in the Arad River. The 4 transverse rows of 3 square of rectangular holes drilled at the bottom, 12 in total, correspond to thickness control holes. When the process of building the craft was finished, were plugged with wooden dowels, in this case, grey willow. Finally, on the starboard side, there is a circular hole with a diameter between 14.6 to 14.8 centimeters that corresponds to the replacement of a knot with a cylindrical plug. The large number of knots along the dugout means that it was carved with the bow towards the top and the tree and the stern towards the base. It's a flat-bottomed dugout with rounded sides, corresponding to the Type A 1/5 of Beata Arnold's topological proposal. In May 2003, as part of a new CNAS field mission, a 5th dugout was discovered in an area adjacent to Lima 4 with many morphological affinities. In fact, these 2 dugouts were separated by just a couple of meters. Lima 5 dugout was located at the base of a slope under a fallen and rotten tree root, perpendicular to the north bank and at the same depth of Lima 4. It has a length of 5.97 meters at a midship, has a width of 99 centimeters, a height of 66.5 centimeters, and a thickness range from 1.4 to 9 centimeters in the edges. In other words, it is the best preserved specimen as it is preserved in all its length, width, and height. It was conceived also in a Quercus rubber trunk, whose radiocarbon dating points to a chronology around the 4th/3rd centuries BC. Lima 5 endings are rounded and the bow has an eyelet. The 2 boards are not parallel as they widen towards the bow. The outer bottom is flat, while the inner, especially on the sides, has irregular and excessively thick areas. Like Lima 4, Lima 5 has square holes drilled in the bottom, 7 in total, arranged in 3 rows of 2 and 1 of just 1, that correspond to thickness control holes. These holes are only seen on the outer surface of the hull bottom, as they have not been finished. The bottom is 15 centimeters thick in certain areas, which is not reasonable for a craft of this type. The outside of the turn of the bilge has sharp edges, indicating that some cutting is missing. All these arguments suggest that Lima 5 is unfinished. There is a lower, almost vertical, and that has a kind of bench, which is consistent with the stern, in the logic of pole and static propulsion. The other end is higher and has an eye bolt, which is common on dugout bows. However, the bow is much wider than the stern, which is unusual. Basically, like Lima 4, it's a flat-bottomed dugout with slightly rounded sides, corresponding to the Type A 1/5 of Beata Arnold's topological proposal. The 6th dugout is the one about which there is the slightest information, since when CNAS was informed of its existence, it was already out of its position in a poor state of preservation, showing an uncontrolled drying process. Moreover, there is no further information about its discovery, especially its location and its chronology, since no attempt was made to date it using physico-chemical methods. It has a length of at least 3.56 meters, at a midship has a width of at least 50 centimeters, a height of at least 28 centimeters, and the average thickness ranged from 2.1 to 2.4 centimeters. It was conceived in a quercus trunk. It is quite deformed and has several cracks. In terms of typology, given their state of preservation, it is very difficult to put forward a proposal. Even so, it seems to correspond to the Type A 1/6th or Type A 1/5R of Beat Arnold's typological proposal. In January of this year, the Archaeology Office of the Viana do Castelo City Council reported the discovery of a seventh dugout near the ridge of São Simão. It has a length of 4.98 meters, at a midship has a width of 75.3 centimeters, a height of at least 43.4 centimeters, and the thickness range from 3.07 to 10.21 centimeters in the edges. Through macroscopic analysis, seems to have been conceived in a quercus trunk, but this information needs laboratory authentication. Samples were taken for radiocarbon dating and tree species identification. Although when it was found, it was in an inverted position with the bottom facing up and broken into several fragments, its state of preservation is good. In fact, it is preserved on one of its sides from the bow to the stern, and in a central area to almost the upper limit of the craft. Both boards tend to be parallel, and the probable stern end is oval, while the bow is more pointed, although it is incomplete. The bottom is practically horizontal throughout, with small rises in the areas near the bow and stern, making it slightly concave. Unlike the other dugouts, and according to the preliminary analysis, Lima 7 doesn't have any holes to controlling the thickness of the craft. In terms of typology, Lima 7 is a flat-bottomed dugout with slightly round sides, corresponding to the Type A 1/5C. It also has some characteristics that fall into the A 1/6T type of that proposal. In these 7 dugouts, there seems to be at least 2 sets with some coherence. On the one hand, dugouts Lima 1, 2, and 3 share a very close chronology between the 8th and 11th centuries, and the first 2 also have a very close location. In terms of dimensions, Lima 1 and 2 has near the same length, width, and thickness, and Lima 3 is a little bigger. On the other hand, dugouts Lima 4 and 5 have a very close chronology, 4th, 3rd centuries BC, and the location is exactly the same. Their dimensions are a bit different, especially in length. Besides that, some architectural features are common. For instance, the holes on the bottom to control the thickness of the craft are square in section, while dugouts 1, 2, and 3 have round holes. Apparently, dugout 7 is located very close to dugout 3, and the results of the radiocarbon analysis are awaited. At this point of the presentation, after a brief description of each of the dugouts and their main features, we need to stop, think, and ask some questions. Why do dugouts keep appearing only in this part of the Lima River? What explains this phenomenon? Local shipbuilding tradition, natural navigation conditions, trade networks across the river, religious questions related to the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela? Can landscape archaeology help us to understand it? Can the concept of maritime cultural landscape be an asset in this matter? What is known about the settlements on both banks of the Lima River and in the periods considered? The Castro culture is the archaeological material culture of the territory of the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula. It is characterized by castros, high fortified settlements located at strategic points, normally on top of the hills, which facilitated their own defense, but also areas with easy access to the acquisition and transportation of resources. It is a phenomenon that marked Portugal's proto-history, especially in the period between the Late Bronze Age and the conquest of that territory by the Roman Empire, with the Iron Age being its apogee. The exact number of castros identified is unknown, but there are over 1,000 of them just in Portugal. These fortified settlements, which represented resistance to outsiders, function as small villages based on an agro-silvopastoral economy. Despite this subsistence economy, there was frequent trade between these settlements. In this way, there was a network of trade which, in addition to land routes, was also based on riverside routes like Lima rivers. Thus, the river was a source of water supply, a source of protein through the fishing, a hub for trade, and a land for growing crops. Other economic activities that were also very important in this area were milling, clay exploitation, mining, especially bronze, tin, and copper, but also the exploitation of salt. It is thus clear that the Minhos Castros were settlements with several economic resources, so it's easy to imagine a profusion of trading taking place, some of it along and across the rivers, which were excellent communication paths. Although we don't know which crafts transported these goods, the Lima 4 and 5, the Gout, may have been the solution adopted, as well as for crossing the river and for fishing. If we look to the location of dugouts 4 and 5, we see the presence of several castros in their surroundings, whose archaeological remains correspond to the same chronology as the radiocarbon results of the craft. In medieval times, the stretch of the Lima River where the dugouts have appeared was marked by small settlements with churches, chapels, crosses, wharves, and quays, which served the Lima's riverside populations. In fact, shipments of lime, stone, coal, wood, agricultural products, and people have been documented since at least the medieval period. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the current territory of Minho was occupied by Suevi and later by Visigoths. From the beginning of the 8th century, there was a Muslim advance on the Iberian Peninsula, although part of the territory to the north of Braga and as far as Asturias in Spain resisted, remained Christian, and organized the reconquest. It is precisely in this period of Muslim conquest and Christian reconquest that the Gauts 1, 2, and 3 are inserted. At the time, on the stretch of the Lima River that is of interest here, there were small villages and towns, of which several remain still persist, especially churches, chapels, convents, necropolis, and bridges, among other archaeological features. Equally interesting is the reference to Lugar da Passagem in medieval and early modern times as a crossing point between Moreira de Gerais do Lima and Lanhese as part of the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. In fact, the toponymy is helpful to understand this reality of connection between banks. The place where the two Iron Age dugouts appeared is known as Carregadouro. Along this part of the Lima River, there are several suggestive toponyms, such as Ponte da Barca, Ponte da Lima, Barco do Porto, Embarcador, Porto, Barco, among others. These are just a few facts that put us on the trail of the millenary tradition of crossing the Lima River, which at least existed between the Iron Age and the mid-20th century, when the construction of several bridges caused the gradual disappearance of this important activity for the local economy. These crafts have great heritage value, considering criteria such as antiquity, uniqueness, scientific relevance, and state of conservation. Proof of this is the classification of the first 6 as national treasure since 2021. Radiocarbon dating results of Dugout 6 and 7 could be very important for better understanding and characterize this collection. This preliminary work is a first approach to the dugout as a collection, which has never been done except for the study of Francisco Alves and Eric Reed on Lima 4 and 5. Geophysics works needs to be carried out on the Lima River with a special focus on the 11 kilometers between Ponte Nova and the chapel of Nossa Senhora das Candeias, where the 7 dugouts have appeared, giving priority to the area along the banks. In parallel, geoarchaeological work should be developed, namely through systematic sample of the subsoil, also prioritizing the banks of the river. In this way, it will be possible to understand the evolution of the Lima River itself and consequently to define more precisely the possible areas where these dugouts come from and where they have operated. We need to look beyond the river, both to the north and south, seeking a holistic approach to the Castro settlements that exist in the surrounding area, as well as the known medieval villages, speaking only the two most coherent periods represented in the known sample. In other words, for some answers to the cultural integration of this epiphenomenon of the Lima River dugouts, it's necessary to apply the concept of the maritime cultural landscape. Ethnographic work should be performed based on interviews and/or informal conversations with the local community of fishermen, divers, and shellfish gatherers in order to obtain information about the area's underwater cultural heritage. At the same time, the types of craft that currently exist on the banks of the Lima River should be documented, identifying continuities and ruptures in their use over time. It would also be very useful to invest in the experimental archaeology related to the dugouts of the Lima River. In this regard, it is worth mentioning the existence of the foreman Caninhas, who a few years ago built a replica of the Lima 5 and tested with successful its navigability between Lanhês and Ponte da Barca. Through the relationship with local communities, it would be interesting to develop the dissemination of the maritime cultural heritage as a tool for leveraging local cultural tourism. Different itineraries could be created along the Lima River, focused on the observation and interpreting Iron Age castros and medieval villages from the river and aboard replica dugouts. This work was only intended as a first approach to this group of primitive crafts built according to the technology in force at the time, and which perhaps still have some reminiscence in today's crafts on the Lima River. Thank you so much for your attention.
So, thank you. Moving on to the next presentation, I would like to call João, sorry, I have not been able to read Marracano, to present the next segment of the presentation, which would be displaying logouts, canoes, the Lima River Dugouts Base Studies, Portugal.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the opportunity of being here and presenting another perspective of the same dugouts of the logboat canoes from Lima River. This will be the perspective of the conservation. You're going to see the same kind of objects, but shown in the totally different approach. My name is José António Gonçalves. João Marracano is the other co-author, he's there. And we'll try to split the presentation in two. Okay. Well, the conservation of waterlogged wood dugouts, it's not an easy task. And in the conservation aftermath, displaying big logboat canoes in a museum environment brings to light a whole lot of issues. You already seen this picture? Well, this is the Lima River dugouts, number 2, and number 6, which are displayed in our center in CNAS, the National Underwater Nautical and Archaeological Center. And we moved into these facilities 2 years ago, more or less, and we decided that as we have this room for conferences and presentations, we decided it will be a good opportunity to display some of the objects that we have been taking care in our lab. And what better to display that the two logboat canoes that are national treasure. It was as listed as that, as Gonçalo told, and which is not just an opportunity to show people what we do in conservation, but show people what it can happen when there's no conservation at all. As we've seen, Lima 6 didn't have any sort of conservation works and stayed like in that presentation condition. In Lima 2, as in Lima 1, we did all we can to do the proper conservation works, and that's why I choose these two objects, because it's a way to show people what happens when things go well, what happens when things go wrong. Okay. And what's the problem? Well, ancient logboat canoes preserved in waterlogged archaeological contexts are very fragile objects. Sometimes they came in pieces, or just a part of what they used to be, as we've seen also in Lima 3 example. Sometimes they came in as a whole, like the examples of Lima 5 and Lima 4, but even in those conditions, they are very delicate. A single press with a finger in the wood can leave a permanent mark. So this is the kind of object that it's not ready available for study, for be handled, and presents a lot of problems to all of us who want to study them, who want to know them better. Well, because opposite most archaeological artifacts that are unearthed in land, waterlogged materials they have this strong need to be placed in water after they've been recovered from those environments, from the original environments. And that aftermath, if our goal is to place them or display them in a museum environment or show them in any kind of other situation, we need to invest a lot of time and a lot of money to perform conservation works so they can be readily available for exhibition. And that's the main the main goal of our presentation is to talk about discuss a little bit about what it's involved in all these works that we need and what we think and all the knowledge that we have to gather to go through from this point when a logboat is discovered until the moment that it can be shown in the museum environment. Well, the example that you see is just a 3D model that Gonçalo already shown of the Lima River tree, and which is still in a tank with water, waiting for the conservation works to be ready available for exhibition. So that's why we shown the 3D model, that we're not showing this canoe or this logboat as we like to. Only by long-lasting procedures of the impregnation, different methods, no matter PEG, sucrose, rosin, whatever, that takes a lot of time. What we are seeing in the image is the Lima River 5 that started the impregnation process last year. Our estimation of time, it is to be completed, the impregnation process is to be completed in a course of 5 years, because we have to do it step by step. For the ones who know a little bit of conservation, we cannot just, for this logboat, I think we're going to need around 40% of PEG impregnation. 70%. 70% of PEG, so we cannot just throw 70% of PEG into the water, into that tank. We just have to go step by step, increasing the amount of PEG that we put. That's why it takes around 6 years. And after that, we need around 1 year at least of a drying process of the residual water that stays inside the wood. I say 1 year because the ideal situation it will be to using this freeze drying process. But as our freeze dryer only have 2.5 meters long, well, we just have to do an air drying process in a bigger chamber that we have. That's why it will take long. So All these, if all goes well, in the course of 6 years, this logboat canoe will be ready, available to be displayed in the museum. And when I say in 6 years course, I will say also after 60,000 years of investment. Okay. That's when I say investment, I say in the PEG, in PEG, in electricity, in water, in staff that need to know what is needed to do to perform these conservation works. And if everything goes well, what do we have? Now, we have an object that is in which we invest a long time, a lot of money, and is ready to be displayed. And what should we expect after that? Should we display a logboat canoe in pieces with cracks, in fragments, if it's not completed, if it's not as a whole? What should we expect also, and of course, because all these objects that are not completed or that are not displayed as shown can lead to some misunderstanding of the object. As these objects have been taken care in our lab in Lisbon, if the object is also to be displayed in another part of the country, as we expect to be displayed in a museum local to this origin, like in Viana do Castelo or another place nearby, we have also to think about moving them, to transport them into that museum, and we also have to think about what the conditions of that museum should have so they can be in a very stable situation. What we are seeing in this image, it's a logboat canoe, Norwegian logboat canoe that is in Norsk Maritime Museum. And it's very long. They have a freeze dryer with 5 meters long, and the logboat was longer than 5 meters. So they just cut the logboat to do the freeze drying process in 2 stages and separately. Everything went well, looks well, and when they displayed in the museum, a part of the logboat just started to twist into one side, and the rest of the logboat just started to twist into the other side. And also this crack that you can see in the bow, it also appeared after being displayed in the museum. So this is a very good example of all the issues and problems that we should expect when we display the museum, and we display these kind of artifacts in a museum, even after we invested a lot of time and money in them. So, first of all, the look-like. If they come in pieces with cracks or with lacunas or whatever, so why we just don't glue the fragments and reassemble the object if we have them? But by theoretical principle, wood impregnated with PEG cannot be glued. PEG works as a wax on a wood surface, reducing severely the bonding properties with adhesives and consolidants and whatever kind of products that you can do. That's what we learn in our school books, isn't it, João? that wood cannot be glued?
Of course it can be glued.
Well, we decided to pick up one of the logboats canoes. This one that we are seeing is the Lima 1, that we had severely cracks on the long side. Alongside, we had some lacunas, some fragments that were just scattered from the object, and we decided to use it as a case study and to test some gluing techniques. And for that, we just used very basic principles of furniture restoration with not very complex adhesives, not very complex techniques, as you can see in the image. And it worked. And our test logboat canoe, Lima 1, the Gout, it's great. It's very much more stable, and which much better to be understood by the public that can see them. And of course, it makes it a lot easy the task to transport them into the next stage that will be the museum environment. On the other hand, we should realize that waterlogged wood should keep some moisture inside, something around 12%, for equilibrium purpose, which means that that this kind of objects keeps on behaving as a living being in a museum environment. And every single change in these room environments by the increase or decrease of relative humidity can lead to significant change on the shape of the object. They just can bend again, they can twist, they can crack very easily, as we've seen in the North Maritime Museum case. So for these logboats canoes that you've seen in the first picture, the Lima 2 and the Lima 6, we have this also opportunity, as we displayed them in Canage, to do this monitoring over them and more than a course of a year, just to see how they react to all these room changes, how they react to the amount of moist or the decrease of moist, how they react to the increase of temperature, or they react with the decrease of that temperature, how they react in summer, how they react in winter, and so on. And to give a more technical explanation about what we did in that monitoring, I will ask João to come to speak a few words. I'll leave him. It was my chosen of these diagrams, so I don't know if you have something to complain. You can speak there? Okay.
So, hi everyone. The work that we do with the canoes is try to control the equilibrium moisture content of the wood. The wood impregnated with PEG still the same behavior of a common wood. Sorry, the wood absorb and leave water. So because we have a big room and the environmental control of the room, it's not an easy task. We try control the objects, keep. Sorry, I find the right words. Every week we measure the equilibrium moisture content of the pieces, and we compare the moisture content with graphics and reference what was the moisture content of the wood. And after with this compare that we do between the two realities, we achieve if we must control the HVAC or shut down the HVAC, so have the right conditions of the room to maintain the two pieces, wood mostly, in the equilibrium with the room.
Okay. Well, it was also a very nice opportunity to do for this monitoring, to have this Lima 1 and Lima 2, sorry, and the Lima 6 as the case studies, because Lima 2 was impregnated with PEG at 40% and then freeze-dried. Lima 6 didn't have any kind of conservation works, as we shown before, as it was shown before. So they are very nice examples. Beside that being the good guy and the bad guy example, it's because you can just test how a wood with all kind of treatment will react in a museum environment. Also, how we can also to monitor how a wood with impregnation impregnated with PEG can react in this museum environment. That was also very good because we can compare and see the differences that can present in these environments when they change, when they increase or decrease the moist content. So what we've seen here is the room behavior of along the course of these months. Of course, we're just making a monitoring period bigger than that, That was from, we also almost, at this point we are almost at 2 years lasting monitoring. And here we just see the evolution of the two case studies. Well, the Lima 2 and the Lima 6. In the curves, in the lines on the bottom, you can see the theoretical moist of equilibrium. I don't know if you want to, you are better than me to doing these comments, because you were doing to it. And the EMC, which is that.
It's better I speak in Portuguese for you guys understand everything. Então, olá a todos outra vez. Dos trabalhos que nós fazemos no CNAS, ao nível da monitorização destes dois...
In terms of monitoring these two objects in the multifunctional room, so one of the tasks we do is this one. And this is what the two bottom lines in the graph show. We measure the humidity, the moisture content, and with a simple moisture measurer, which can be simply purchased. So with these values we obtain, we compare them with optimal values, theoretical values. So the graphs of the balance values take into account humidity and the relative temperature. This is why it's important that we always keep in mind the temperature and the relative moisture. From this data, we can then realize and understand the right measure. After that, we always compare this figure with the real units the objects have, and we do this monitoring weekly every Monday. And the monitoring is being done, can you help me there, José, for about a year now. The data we are showing and sharing with you are from 2 quarters only. Right now we can work on this data, but we have a lot more data available, and we will work on them possibly for a next conference or event. We might be presenting that data, because this data, besides allowing to control the pieces regarding their preventative preservation, they also allow to directly study the wood and to understand what the possible developments wood might have. This is an ongoing monitoring task of these two objects. Here, in these two graphs, what we have represented is a very weird word, isothermal. What does it mean? This is the figure of the relative moisture content, which was measured during these 2 quarters in the pieces. This figure is the figure of what was really measured and not the theoretical figure. There is a relationship between the balance units, which is actually measured, and the relative moisture in the room. There is always an influence on the objects. So for this one here, this is an experimental work. What we did, so we started prospecting the histories of the two objects, Lima 2 and Lima 6. You can ask, what is this word, histories? For those who are not very familiar with wood technology, histories means a theoretical situation, an ideal, optimal situation which might occur in wood, where wood is kept perfectly stable, not gaining or losing moisture. It's considered theoretically ideal, with no deterioration, no retraction problems or volumetric variation. In theory, the figures should be there according to the relative moisture, but let's suppose at 56% of relative moisture, the balance moisture necessary is of 12% for Lima 6. Then this relationship also applies to Lima 2. There is other data which we continually study, and as has been referred before, will be approached and focused on in the future.
So, just to make this conclusion, okay. So after all this work that we have done in monitoring, and after the conservation works of this gluing, consolidation, reassembling fragments that we did on this on Lima 1. This is Lima 1, and after all this data that we've been collected, now we are in conditions. First, the object is in condition to be displayed in the museum. Second, we are in condition to tell the museum that we're going to receive the object and displaying what will be the environmental conditions that they should have in the room. So this is the main results that we have for our object, and that's why we've shown this image. The image, the Lima 1 being placed in a box and ready to be dispatched into a place where it can be easily exhibited. All of these don't came out of nothing, of course. All of these that we just presented, these 20 minutes, represents a lot of work, represents time, above all, and to achieve all these results demands research, demands reflection over the study in order to get the necessary knowledge, and finally, it was required to put the hands on work, and sometimes put the hands on work and do these experiments on gluing in an object that have, sometimes they can have 2,000 years old. It's always a risk, and it's a hard decision to take. But we make the experiments, and we get experienced after that. The conservation works, the conservation restoration works, all these ancient woodcrafts demands all this knowledge, and above all, the knowledge over the material and to the deep of its veins. So, and with this, I just do my conclusion. Thanks a lot for your attention.
So with this, we have this part of the presentations concluded. We will open a discussion and question period. I would ask the presenter from the second to come to join us at the table. Yeah, and as well. And also, I would like to try to add Philippe, that it's online, and others that may want to join us. Just a small delay before we can synchronize. There is Philippe.
I am so sorry.
Can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly. I am sorry. This laptop has been fighting with me all this time.
Okay, no worries. So, I don't know if anyone has a question or any doubt that want to pass to our presenters. Normally, people are a little bit shy, but no, there is one straight away. Two. we are in a roll.
Right, I said I have several questions, but I'll just start with one and see how much time we have. Regarding the Lima canoes, really fascinating. I'm wondering, in both the presentations, I'm wondering, have there been any, you were talking about whole canoes, have there been any fragments found that might be earlier? And also, are there any paddles found that have been dated? Or is the idea that they're using poles to cross the river?
I don't know if anyone wants to. And Philip, if as well, if you want to.
About pedals, we don't have knowledge of any kind of pedals. What's the other question? It's about the
or fragments.
The fragments.
Yeah. But we do have some holes.
Yeah, we have some holes.
But we do have some of the canoes have some holes on the boards. I don't know if it's on the port side or the starboard.
Port side, I think.
That are not natural holes. They were intentionally made. So they are not big. They are kind of this size.
So then I have one more question. I'll just go ahead with.
You said something about fragments.
Yes.
Well, in I think Lima 7, the last one, Lima 3 and Lima 4, there are some timber scattered around the dugouts that make part of the craft. But well, they are scattered, so they are apart, but it's like a set of the craft.
Makes sense. That answers my question.
Yeah.
But then I've
just and in Lima 7, because we just presented one note, because Filippo told that Lima 7 is in Canãs, in our center. It's not it. It's still in Viana do Castelo, in some place that we are just giving them support, technical support, just to study and see how we can do with the conservation works. With Lima 7, yes, there's a lot of, we just present the image of the bigger part of the canoe, but the archaeologists from the municipality just did a small survey on surroundings. They just collect big fragments that can just give us a better notion of the dugout. And yes, it's a very interesting fragment that it's a part of the bow. That is totally different in design from the rest of the dugouts that were found on the place.
Perhaps from a different boat?
No, it's from the same boat. That we already some tests to reassemble, just putting them in place, and we already have a better picture of how it should be the original look like of the canoe.
And I don't want to take up too much time, but I have one more question, and it has to do with conservation. Yes. It was very interesting to hear about your issues of conserving the boats. In my experience, usually what I'm interested in is removing peg from artifacts. So I'm wondering if any of your experiments with different ways of conserving these dugouts has given you any insights or ideas about how to remove these materials from the wood so that we can date them.
Do you want to remove the peg? Why? Because it's
so that you can do a C14 dating, of course.
Oh. That depends on the amount of peg that it's inside of the wood, but it's hard to remove. Well, sometimes it comes out when we don't want, if there's too much moist in the room. So, and there's also a lot of exceeding peg after treatment that we just taking care with hot air or something with some solvents. But well, if you want to remove the whole peg, it's not easy. But
I know.
But if you want just take a surface sample, well, just to carbon dating, well, maybe that will be easier. I don't know what you do.
When I glue the crags, I clean the surface with the surface with acetone. and I use a small brush to do the job. It's to promote the one better adherence of the two parts. But to remove completely the peg, yeah, it's a nice challenge.
You have to place them in water again.
You try to put in water?
Yes, I've tried acetone and water and centrifuging and many other things. But I was wondering what your insights were, since you are from the conservation perspective. But thank you very much, and I think I will give it to the next question.
Well, it's okay? Okay. To Gonzalo, I have some remarks about your presentation, especially for the number 2 and 3, where you mention only 2 thickness jauge. Thickness holes. I am not sure that it's for thickness jauge. They are not enough numerous. I ask me if it's not holes to allow the water, the rain from the water going out and not to step in the bottom of the dugout. I have observed this on many places in foreign continents. So
it could be perfectly.
Yes,
you have reason in that.
The thing which you can have, it's the diameter of the holes. If they are quite big, the interpretation of keeping away the rain, the water of the rain, can be good. If they are very small, it's less positive. Now, now, problem of conservation. I think what is important to say, the conservation started at the second where you have discovered a wooden artifact. And after, you are only running after the time that the degradation is not starting more and more away. And I think you need to have 2 steps very important in the studying of this wooden artifact. The first is immediately after the discovery by archaeologists who make all the records as much as possible. Tool traces and so on shall disappear with the time or during the conservation, because the wood is not under the pressure of the sediment in which he lies. And after you have the job of restoration, your job, very important, but it allows a second stage. It is presentation for the public, so the people understand why we try to preserve this, and for the future to allow new archaeologists to put new questions, to have new answer. But the answer which small details as 2 traces are not done, you never can go back again. So I think the archaeologist must be conscious that it's very, very important on the start to make the analysis, and for the people who are making the conservation, they need absolutely to bring to her project the archaeologist. It's the way of success.
Yes, I agree totally, and especially because there's some. Well, we didn't talk about in the presentation, but we put only all these dugouts. The Lima 1, Lima 2 have been taking care of the conservation works. Lima 3 and Lima 4 are not in conservation process. Lima 5 is in the conservation process, and of course, the other ones that are in the conservation process, they are in water, in tanks. And we can think that they are okay, but they are not totally okay. The wood keeps on being degraded by microorganisms. And some traces of the surface, they keep on disappearing and vanishing. year after year that we keep him on these tanks with water. So it's fundamental. The first touch, the first look into these objects, these artifacts is very important because there are traces in the surfaces. They can vanish in a few days.
Just one more reflection, please. For the conservators of museums, when they hear artifacts of the 18th century, they look not nice. They are scratched. You have some very interesting example in your collection, but preserve it as it is and don't throw them away because they take place. I have seen too much occasion where the conservator push away the old discoveries because they are not nice to take new ones. But the old one can bring us many information as you have presented it this afternoon. So please, it's not because they are not very nice that they don't need to be survived.
No, of course not.
I have seen this too frequently, also in Switzerland.
Thank you. Can you put the translation?
Put the translation, please. It's more easy to me. Relativamente aos trabalhos de restauro que foram feitos
restoration works in Lima 1, let me provide the following explanation. Lima 1 is a piece which is very delicate and has a very delicate background in the sense that from the onset, from the moment it was discovered, it almost dried out almost entirely. It got sort of slanted and twisted. The original form was tried. I mean, and we tried to stabilize it through. In a stage of dryness, but the problems never actually disappeared. What happened more recently was that these problems were making the dugout to risk to lose a part or one of the sides of one of its sides. And that is why we decided to put in place some experiments to try and minimize and, take care of these issues. Because the problem that we were faced with was that one side, mind you, it is a 4-meter long dugout, and there was the risk that a part of it or one of the sides would fall apart. So if you want to see all the work we carried out, I do believe that through the end of this year, we're going to have a publication with all that, and from then onwards, you will be able to follow up all the work that was done. The publication is going to be in Portuguese.
In 1985, as it was told, but she stayed for a course of 3 to 4 months in a warehouse, and only drying and it just deformed slightly, a lot, considerably. And then when we started to do the conservation works, there was the team that was doing that. I was not in the team at the time. They just tried to put him in the original position, and that, and all these efforts that was made on the wood, the tension works, that just lead to some after problems that João told it. It makes a long cracks over the flanks, over the one of the boards. So,
can I make a question to Bert? Why not? Do you think about the holes? Do you think it's just a matter of size or quantity too? Because they are just two. Could be. Actually, I agree with you, but the thing is, since they are just two, your theory make more sense
Yes.
than ours.
Of course. But if you have money, I agree with the possibility very high of thickness jaws, especially if you are in medieval or Roman time. If you are with older dugouts, the problem is very different because, well, you are near from the sea and you have the technology of the big boat with tenon and mortise. So you have the tools to make the holes very easy. But if you are in older times where you don't have the boring
The tools,
tools, that at that moment you have the big problem how to measure it. And the problem changed completely between the continental Europe and the area of Mediterranean, where you have a big construction of plank boat with tenon and mortise. The tools are present, the knowledge is present, and so you can have this. So when you are in the Bronze Age or Neolithic times, they need to find other solution to measure the thickness, because you cannot do this with the hand. For the sight, it's very easy. With 2 fingers, you are ready by 2 millimeters, with training 1 millimeters. But for the bottom, your arms are not long enough to have this place. And they need to find a solution to make this. They have found some, for example, on the Swiss lakes. Many logboats have, secondly, in the bottom, small thickness of wood. I claim that you have small thickness of wood, and so from one to the other one, they know how much material they need to put away to have the bottom as thin as possible. And the logboat of Twan or Douane, they have the 2-stage preserved. One, in the first stage, you have the ribs, and after they are going deeper on the next one. And this proves that this technique was used, and it's very easy. Just, you have not this problem because you have too recent canoe, so it's another word. Another way, you have chance to have the gout in oak. But if you have the gout with pine tree, with lime, you shall live in another world of difficulties, of course. But I mean with oak, if you go to the prehistoric time, you have also a natural degradation between the outside of the preserved dugout and the inside. Oh, no, the middle part. And when it dry, as we have this in the 19th century discoveries, the problem is they don't shrink on the same process. The outside, who is more naturally degraded, shrink 2 times more than the inside. So when all things dry out without kitchen solution, as we have, they take salt, they take oil, they take any what before PEG was discovered. So you have the inside who look very nice because it crack more on the inside wood, and as the general form shrink something less, the crack look like very thin, but the outside, the crack, are 3, 4, 5 times more important. And after you see in the exhibition rooms, cleaning machine who put away all these pieces who drop down. to say, you are in a very good situation.
Thank you.
It's just a joke. No, it's true. I have seen some example of restaurateurs who found this not very nice. So they clean all away with new tool traces. So all things exist in the world.
We don't have this kind of problem.
Just to say, you are lucky.
But we keep all the pieces that loose.
I have some comments and some questions for each of the speakers, but also for Beth there as well, and on the thickness gauges. Of course, Beth is absolutely correct. The thickness gauges are a fantastic aid to understanding the depth as you hollow it out to get to the required thickness. And it's not just that, but the problem is also in understanding the depth when you don't have the thickness gauges, because as you hollow out the tree trunk to make the boat, you pull out the wood wastage and it comes up on either side of the boat. So as you near the bottom of the hollowing, you decide, okay, I'm going to measure now what the thickness is. And there's a problem, because the wood has built up and risen around it. It can be like 40 centimeters in height. So to my mind, I've postulated the possible sort of solution to this is that when the outside hull of the dugout boat is shaped into the boat shape, the heartwood rot is removed and it's turned over, and the hollowing, the excess from the tree trunk is taken off, so you have the flat surface of the boat before you start to hollow it. There may be a measurement was taken at this particular time down to the bottom, and they then use that as a guide. So this is my view on that. Just in relation to Philippe and his first presentation, thank you very much for that. I'm somewhat envious of you with just the 12 dugout boats, because we have approximately 500 recorded dugout boat discoveries in Ireland, so it's much more manageable, and being able to sort of theorise and be able to take your time and being able to work on these. But it's a fantastic presentation. Thank you for that. And with the second presentation, I'm really interested in the thickness again of the floor of the boats. Of course, I agree that the 15 centimetre one is not finished. It's probably put it in storage in the water to keep the wood fresh and pliable, so it can be taken out and finished at a later date. But we have in Ireland, we have, with our approximate 500 discoveries, we have just 4 boats that have got a floor thickness of between 2 and 2.5 centimetres in thickness. And when I first came across this several years ago, I put out a call through the early Watercraft network to see if any other countries had sort of comparable sort of thicknesses. And I remember Mirren telling me to go back to the shop and buy a new measuring tape, because the one I was using was clearly broken. It's impossible to have so thin. So when you say that you have ones between 1 and 2 centimetres, that's absolutely phenomenal. The ones that we have, they were designed for for speed, for good maneuverability. So in that sense, it's understandable why they were going for this particular thin hull. But it meant it reduced the longevity, of the boat. It would not survive as long. We know that it did happen because one of the boats in particular was found in a Crannog, a lake-dwelling excavation from about 10 years ago, so that it was within a sealed sort of context, so it wasn't subsequent erosion. So my question to you on this is, do you believe that the 1 and 2 centimetre thicknesses, that's the actual finished original thickness, or maybe could it be something like it was wear and tear and erosion? And finally, in relation to the conservation, I'm not going to pretend to understand or know much about your witchcraft, but it's absolutely fantastic. But when you do the conservation, and it's always the the battle in terms of the funding that's available, and it's, do you display it, do you conserve it, what you do, because these things are a financial cost. But now that you actually include restoration, I'm sure whoever pays the bills must run away from you when they see you coming down the corridor. But with the restoration, if you're gluing the timber, and you're gluing some of the timber to another part of it, does that not move the weakness in the hull off into a different part that it might actually pull apart at some other stage in the conservation process? And again, forgive my ignorance if it's a stupid question.
No problem.
About the thickness, the first results are from the 80s and the 90s records, and we also thought that could be a little exaggerated. The thing is, when we did recently a new record with the laser scan, and we measure it, it's accurate. So yeah, it's a little bit thin, it is, but I agree with you. It's not its original thickness. It's after a wear and tear process, and that's what we have right now. But I think because 1.5 or 2.1, I think, centimeters, it's very, very thin. Again, in another presentation in Saturday, we'll talk about the Gauts canoes from São Tomé and Príncipe, and in these days they have the Gaut canoes with 2.5 centimeters, but they only during for a period of time between 2 and 4 years normally, and then they just put aside and construct another. So I think it's interesting your question.
Sorry, and what kind of wood is they use?
In São Tomé?
Yes.
Oh, it's tropical ones. I think it's Oba and Oko something.
Okay, it's very dense wood.
Yeah, very dense, yeah.
Okay.
It's a different kind of timber, yeah.
That decrease of thickness may be a result of the wear, or even from the preservation or lack of preservation in the waterlogged environment. Also, can lose some millimeters of the surface, but it's not much. But if you have a work on a 2 centimeters thickness, well, it can make the difference.
It's better you put the translator. Obrigado, antes de mais nada, pela pergunta. Não há nenhuma bruxaria.
First of all, thank you very much for your question. There is no witchcraft in the way we do our work. The restoration work in itself, what we did, we only show the most visible part of our work. But our work involves concepts related to viscoelastic resistance of wood and also the characteristics of fluence crepe, says the speaker, in the wood, mainly for peg-impregnated wood. This gluing work is only done once. It was done, firstly, we inserted in the wood relaxation loads in the holes width, so that when we did the gluing, there would be no need to apply tightening pressures so different. Besides that, it also allowed that the two sides would be adjusted in a better way to the volumetry, despite the work including many gramps, many wood pegs. The concept behind all this work is the most important, and the concept had to do with the viscoelastic characteristics of the wood, and only thus we were able to achieve this kind of work. Essentially, what we did mechanically in working the wood, we managed to create an ideal situation in the piece so that the holes could be glued without changing the object and without adding problems to the object. Besides that, we also thought that in terms of current and future preservation, it was the ideal solution. As I mentioned, the tugboat before the intervention ran the risk of simply rupturing and breaking. I hope it's been enlightening, my answer to your question.
Easy to translate all these kind of technical concepts.
Basically, we work with the wood creep, and we make some work with the creep of the wood. We try to reduce the amplitude of the cracks.
We do a lot of rehearsals before we glue it. Just moving,
Yes,
trying, moving,
yes.
relaxing, moving, relaxing.
Moving,
until we
relaxing.
just at the point that we consider that
It's the witchcraft of the
that's
job.
witchcraft.
So I don't know if it's possible for I don't know if it's possible for the presentation of Philippe shown I think the information about the dugout 12, because I think you passed it too fast and I didn't see enough info.
I don't know, é possível pôr o vídeo em paralelo da minha apresentação.
I can try to find the slides if you want and share my screen. Would that work?
So it's about, I think
That
it
would
was
be great.
the number 12, the dugout.
Yeah, Philippe, if you could share the presentation.
Absolutely. Let me just, because I do have a little bit of a share. Share presenter mode. No, share content. Window. Here. Do you see it?
Yeah. Yes, we see your computer.
Yes. I know.
Don't show anything that you don't want to show. Come on.
Yeah, I don't have any secrets. Caminha, I think, isn't it? 7, no. So, because I have everything organized in dugout 7. No. Oh, I called it 12. I am very sorry. So these are the images. Can you see them all? Do you see?
We see the entire screen full of pictures, but very small.
Oh, so you cannot see. Wait.
You need to.
Okay.
Oh, I need to do a new screen share. Sorry. Stop
I
sharing.
think you can move on for the question. There was another question.
Yeah. Now you can see this.
Yes.
Can't
I
you?
see my cousin there.
Yes, that's your cousin. Let me go back one. Yeah, this is the pictures I got. And as you see, it's very thick. And that's it. Is there any picture you want me to zoom in?
No, it's okay.
Yep. See if I can. Do you see it? Yes.
Yes, we see it.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm not sharing anymore, am I? No.
Okay. I think there was another question. Sorry.
Hello. Thank you all for 3 very interesting presentations. Just 2 quick questions for presenter number 2. You mentioned wet storing of boats, of log boats. Do you have any archaeological or historical evidence for that, and how long they've been storing log boats?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
You mentioned the possibility of storing log boats underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any archaeological evidence for that, or any historical evidence, or any recent use or storing of boats underwater?
Archaeological evidence? of my knowledge, no, but I don't know if Filipe Castro or someone else has. Of archaeology, archaeological perspective, no, we don't have any kind of remains on that that could lead us to some conclusion about that. Just ethnographic and historical sources.
Okay, yeah.
Of my knowledge, I don't know.
Okay, so it's just more of an assumption in Portugal that they were storing.
We know
boats.
about the ethnology that back in the day, 19th century and so on, it's a common practice in the rivers, namely in Lima River. But from the archaeological point of view, we don't have any evidence of that.
Yeah, and
I agree. I agree. I mean, the Dutch still let their boats sink in the canals during the winter, right?
Yeah.
And then just a comment on the thickness gauge holes. I agree that, yeah, probably mainly for determining the thickness of the floor of the boat so you don't overhollow it. But there's one boat from Ireland which has 15 thickness gauge holes. And one notable thing about that is that the wood grain on the boat is really poor quality. It looks as if the tree has twisted as it's grown. And the only thing I can come up with is that they wanted to put these in to stop the poor grain from splitting. So maybe I don't have it in my talk for tomorrow morning, but maybe I can put that boat in just to illustrate that this might have been there to stop this poorly chosen tree, the grain on it, from splitting over time, over its use.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. I said that it could be a second hypothesis on these holes, because actually it's right on the end of starting opening crack. So they put I don't know if they put, but it could be a solution that they did to stop that cracking that developed.
Yeah, preventative measure to stop splitting. So I wonder if there's anybody who builds replica logboats, if they've thought about using this technique, or if they have used it to prevent the boat from splitting.
If I can answer some of that, and I might be able to deflect part of that question as well. Certainly, we've undertaken some experiments in making replica logboats, and one of the more recent ones that we did was with the very twisted and distorted grain. This was a few years ago in Benón Heritage Park in the southwest of Ireland. We were using replica medieval woodworking tools for that. I've made previous boats with beautiful straight grains, and it's just, when it's fresh oak, it's just a pleasure to work with. But when it's a twisted, distorted grain, it fights you, you fight back. You end up in tears nearly, and you want to give up and go home. It is horrible at times, but we persevere. I don't, and I haven't seen evidence to suggest that holes in the boat would be able to sort of alleviate the stresses, if you like, of the distorted grain. I'd imagine if this was going to be the case, you would actually see it on the sides and not just the floor of the boat. I have more recently been examining some dugout boats from between 600 and 1000 AD there in the River Foyle there in the northwest of Ireland, some of the very distorted grains. And what we have seen is, rather than using the holes, we've actually seen that there have been little nail holes along where there are actual sort of splits, or where they perceive the splits because the twisted grain are going to occur, and they're stitching it, across with some organic sort of lashing, if you like. But I think in terms of post-preventative repairs, arguably the best expert is in the room right now in row 2 there, Bob Holzman, who's done his master's on repair work. I don't know if you can add anything into this, Bob. Okay, thank you.
I will have a question for Gonçalo. As the limit tree of the futtock, and well, it probably has a hole for the tenon that cross over the bottom.
The futtock, the kind of futtock, it's fixed with two wooden pegs, wooden dowels. But we don't have any other system to.
Okay, and the size of the holes are quite different from the rest of the holes on the.
They are
a
little bit, they are a bit different. I think there's a gap between ½ centimeter, but it's not. I don't know. Could be a reutilization of the same holes.
Okay.
But in a later period of the life of the dugout, but we don't know.
Okay, because it's the limit tree. I think is the one that's the biggest amount of holes on the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
My last remark about the thickness control, on which most people don't think, and it gives ethnographic records. It is when the canoe is round, not with angle on the village place. It is to use the sound. You make tam-tam on the wood, and you hear where the wood is thicker than on another one. And this allows to people who have this training to control very well without any other tools the thickness, especially when it's very fine, thin.
So just the sound of you knock and then you okay.
Hello, Darina Tully here from Ireland. I mainly study vernacular craft and skin boats. We have a couple of boats in Ireland that could possibly be a transition from logboats to our more modern idea of boats. I'm wondering, have the speakers in their research come across older craft that are not quite logboats, but that have obvious a resemblance to a logboat and has maybe got a large hull being worked with an axe and then maybe planking added to it or something. I'm just wondering, do you come across many transitional boats where I don't think they gave them up overnight. There must have been a transition somewhere from a logboat to a planked vernacular craft for using especially on the rivers.
Well, I would love to help you, but I'm not a dugout expertise. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of foot. But I don't know. Maybe in the room, some people could help you. Yep. Sorry.
Ljuba Jenče from Slovenia. We believe that our extended dugout boat is a transitional phase from monoxyle to plank boat, which I will speak on Saturday afternoon. Thank you very much.
Hello, Cyril Dworsky from Vienna, Austria. We put a lot of effort and resources in conservation of this kind of watercraft, and as you said in your presentation, of course this is not only to restore the cultural heritage, but also to raise awareness about this kind of prehistoric or historic vessels. And I was just wondering on a more management and administrative level, because during, I would say, like the last 10, maybe 15 years in Austria, we discovered, or not we, but sport divers discovered a lot of new dugouts. When I say a lot, 5 new dugouts. which is like a third of all the dugouts that we know in Austria. So, and I think this is why, because we are much more present in media and we do a lot of all kinds of public relation about this topic. And when I look at your presentation, and you have 12 dugouts in Portugal, and 10 out of these 12 dugouts are coming from the Lima River, why is that? And also when Niall, you said you have 500 dugouts in Ireland, is there a kind of special awareness in this region? Is there a special workflow regime how to deal with this kind of appearances? Because as far as I understood, most of the finds were not like sorry. Yeah, common citizens, and not by coming from academics or research. So why 10 in the Lima River, and you have more rivers than the Lima in Portugal? So why is that?
Well, we don't know. Well, maybe because people just raise it, local people raise that awareness to this, and they get just familiarized with these kind of objects that can easily detect. Maybe if in another river of Portugal it appears some fishermen or local people just walking along the river, if it see a canoe or a logboat or something in the bottom, maybe it's just a wood. It's just a piece of wood, and it just just didn't make notice of it. But
yeah, if I may add something, can I? Portugal has an enormous communication problem. It's been archaeology has been something for archaeologists, and I remember very recently colleagues of mine saying that they don't do spectacles, they do science. And so I really believe that what happens in Passagem, in that part of the river, is that people pass the word, talked around, so they know what a dugout is, they know the importance, and they care. I'm living now 45 minutes out of Lisbon, and one of the things that I noticed, I went straight to the Tagus River, and the fishermen, they had no idea. I mean, they had been selling medieval coins for a long time that they find on the margins. And they were saying, "Oh yeah, constructions, yeah." So I'm now inventorying. I'm getting. We already have permission to fly a drone to go look at these ruins that are now in the Tagus, and that people have been. The fishermen go there and fish there, and there are some illegal detectorists that go there. But I am told that two are policemen, so I'm not going to go there. They might have guns. But they are finding coins and they are finding artifacts on the river. But really, nobody told them that the cultural heritage belongs to everybody, that there is an intrinsic value. And I think Portugal still has to fight that big fight of passing on to the population the social importance of archaeology, which is something that has not been discussed, I would not say much, but at all. That has been a big fight of mine. Everything is secret. Archaeologists tend to be afraid of that people know what exists. They might go and pillage, but most people are honest. Most people care, and most people would take a better care of their cultural heritage if they perceived it as theirs. So yeah, we have a long, long way to go. Thank you.
Okay, if I can also give a little comment on Cyril there. It's almost like I put you in the audience to ask that question, because that's the hook for my presentation tomorrow, that some of those things will be addressed in that. But yeah, it's different activities, different periods, different times, different sort of occasions in which the circumstances of the discoveries actually come up, and unsurprisingly, it's only a small proportion of it is being found through actual sort of archaeological work. Having said that, now Carl's presentation now for tomorrow on the Logboats is being a lot of it from the archaeological work that they've done, but that's very much bucks the standard sort of trend I think internationally. In terms of the environment in which they're found, I think that's One, really, that's dependent on the geography or the landscape topography of the individual sort of country. If you look at, like, just as a comparison between Ireland and, you know, the United Kingdom, we have in Ireland more or less 70% of the dugout boat discoveries have come from lake environments, 25% from rivers, and the rest are more miscellaneous. But even if we look at the those that are found in rivers that are short in connectors or very close to lakes, you know, that could almost be argued that it's 85%, you know, are in lakes. But if you look at the United Kingdom, it's the other way around. It's about 70%, you know, are in rivers and 25% in lakes. So then mainland Europe, a lot of us are long stretches of rivers. So it depends on the needs of the people within that culture and within that time, whether it's for trade or travel along the river or as a ferry, you know, point. The topography of Ireland, and this is why it's so different, is that we're obviously a small country, but we have the centre of Ireland is riddled with lakes, small, large, interconnected sort of waterways, much more so than, you know, a lot of the other countries in Europe. Like with Cyril there now, your boats, I imagine most of them would be in lake dwellings or associated with lake dwellings or lake environments rather than the rivers. Denmark, it's quite coastal orientated as well, so it's a difficult question, and I think it depends on, you know, the specific sort of environment of that country and where they're found.
I want to say something about what Philip said because I think it's important. I think it's not just a question of communication. It's a matter of presence on the field, because if you remember the Lima 4, the finder did not collect anything because he knows that the previous 3 was collected, and then there were some kind of environment and archaeological knowledge that passed to this person, and then he don't take anything out of the context. So I think he did the right thing, because there are some presence on the field, there are some knowledge passing, there are some communication, like Philip said. I think it's all that thing. It's environmental, it's topography, it's communication, archaeology, problem of communication. So I think it's a bunch of all of these factors.
I don't know if there is any more questions. Nevertheless, and I don't want to stretch our time in the discussion, but nevertheless, I have a question, I believe. We are sort of focused on the object's preservation, the object by itself, the description of the object, but I was a little bit curious about the context in which the objects were found. Is there any type of work done in order to study the contexts in which the dugouts were discovered? I know that some of them were removed from their original context, so that's obviously something that you cannot work on. But the other ones that were, is there any field work, any data or usable data that could be extracted from there that could be useful to understand a little bit more about these objects? I don't know which one of you would like to pick on the subject.
I can start. Like I said in the presentation, from our knowledge, there's nothing done about the context of the Lima dugout, and we kind of say something for the future in the last slide. But it's just an opinion. If there is some other ideas, I think it will be very, very welcome to to CNAS, to the GPC, but also to the Council of Viana do Castelo and Caminha and others. But I think there's a lot of things that we can do About the context of the dugouts, just probably the 4 and 5, Lima 4 and 5, because they are, the context is very well known, and there are some knowledge already collected. So I think we can start by that.
So there is, whenever the object is recovered, there is not an excavation of the context. It's just the removal of the object by itself.
Well, in Lima 4 and 5 were different because they are some input of CNAS. CNAS did several surveys, but they didn't find anything on the surroundings of Lima 4 and 5. But except from that, all the others are just, so someone finds, someone say or give the news, that information passed, and then the archaeologists or the conservators come to the fields and try to do its best to preserve and to take some knowledge of that.
Because I was wondering if there is any useful information in that context. I don't know if it is, but I assume that something is there that could be useful for understanding a little bit more about this object.
Yes, only in this case at Lima, only the 4 and the 6, the 4 and the 5 were excavated by archaeological methods. All the other ones were just simply removed or retrieved by local people. But what in the excavation of the 4 and 5 was made of for stuff that none of us was there at the time. And what do we have in the archives is not. We don't. What we can suppose is that when they dig the logboat canoes, they didn't find anything. But there was that concern just to look around to see if there's some more evidences that can do related to the context of the logboats or the dugouts. But they didn't find anything.
Actually, the Lima 5, just to complete. Actually, Lima 5 was discovered because the finder of Lima 4 said, okay, now you have the dugout, but I suppose I saw some timber around there, and I think it's something, maybe from this dugout, and the archaeologists went there, and it's Lima 5, not another piece of the Lima 4. So.
Let it just complete a little bit.
Very briefly,
we will fight for the time.
It's a difficult question to answer because when you talk about the context, you're looking at the location of deposition of the boat. Water is a dynamic environment. Very rarely do we have them in sealed archaeological contexts. And even those people, archaeologists who have actually looked at the boat, studied them, they don't have the funding to go and take them out of the water, so we put them back in the water so they're stabilized. And they're conceivably in a zero current environment. There's no such thing. They move. So when you're looking at the location of discovery, you're looking at the location of deposition. And that deposition could have been just 2 weeks ago, or it could have been 400 years ago. So it's a difficult one because the dugout boats, or the logboats, they are the archaeological site in a sense for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Any more questions? Or if not, we will make a small break, maybe to have a coffee or so, and then we will coming back for the last presentation of the day. Thank you. You made my job here very easy. Back again. Some of us are still outside of the room, but in order not to stretch too much the time of this presentation, I would like to start the next presentation. We have here a presentation that is completely different from what we have been talking about until now, but being different, it's more or less the same, because it's the present times of dugout canoes and kayaks, but instead of being made of wood, they are being made with different materials. And with us we have someone from the company, Nelo, which is, as I told you early on at the beginning of the Congress, it's one of the leading, if not the leading company in construction of racing canoes in the world. So, whenever you are available.
Thank you. And good afternoon. My name is Nuno. I work at Nelo. As Pedro was saying, Nelo is a local company. We're just like 2 kilometers away from here. And we build kayaks and canoes. That's what we're most famous for. So, who are we? We are the leading company in manufacturing of and innovation on kayaks and canoes, especially for high performance, for competition canoes. So the same kind of boats you see on Olympic Games, those are our main core business. Of course, besides kayaks and canoes, also do rowing boats, sailing boats, SUP, stand-up paddle boards. So all kinds of water vessels, but this is our main core business. This is what we are known for. Our company is almost, no, it's 45 years old. So we were born in 1978 when Mr. Manuel Ramos, and Manuel has a short name is Nelo, that's hence the name of the company. He was a paddler himself, and at the time in Portugal there wasn't many people producing boats, or to say no one. So if you want to compete in canoeing, you have to buy your boat in Spain, or you build your own boat. And at the time there was some initiatives to teach people here how to build their boats in composites at the time. And so he learned how to do it for himself, so he could compete, he could go to races. He was in fact first Portuguese national champion, so this is what at the time where in Portugal the sport was still growing and becoming what it is today. And he said, okay, maybe I can grow a business out of this, because he was already building boats for his friends, for the club. So he founded a company and established the brand name. So after that we kept growing and growing. I won't go in much detail about our history, but that's where it all started, and it all started here in Vila de Conde. So what have we achieved so far? As I said, we are the top in terms of elite performance boats. That can be, that was what awarded us by the IOC to be the official supplier for the Olympic Games since 2014. So they rewarded us with our capabilities and our technical expertise in terms of boat construction and supplying boats. And we have been growing in terms of results, in terms of what our boats have achieved since then. So this is a graph of the chart of the medals. So in terms of our sports, we measure success by the amount of medals our boats win. So of course it's not the boat that wins the race, it's the paddler, but we like to think that the boat has something to do with it. So it's been pretty good so far. We know that we might not be able to keep this rate forever, but we can complain. So to have an idea, in Tokyo in 2021, out of 36 possible medals, our boats got 25 25 out of them. So we will keep around 85% of all boats, of all teams that go to the major competitions, not only Olympic Games, also World Championships, European Cups, and all kinds of continental tournaments and events. So we are pretty much with all the fields in the sport. So it's not an easy process. I will talk a bit about it a little bit later. But now we are the spearhead of what sport has to offer in terms of boat equipment. So if you watch now, or if you watch next year in Paris, an Olympic Games, a sprint kayak or sprint canoeing event, you will find something like this. So if this is a final, if not all boats, but a big part of the boats, you'll see will have the Nello sticker, so you know they were built here from us. So we are all over the world. We only have one factory here, but we sell all over the world. So we have an official network of over 40 dealers. Those are the ones in red. This is not a purely up-to-date chart, but it serves the purpose. So official dealer is our partner in the country that sells the boats for us. It's important for us to have someone there so that knows the culture, knows how to sell boats, how to approach people. But we sell for all other countries, so the other ones in the dark blue is ones that we can sell directly. But we have sold boats almost all over the world, and around 99% of what we do is for export. Portugal is a reasonably small country for high-performance boats. And our annual sales is around 15 million euros per year. So as I said, we are stationed at Vila do Conde. We are in a new factory since 2017. We have around 200 employees working for us. They do everything, not only building boats, but all the software we use, the design, the development, everything is done in-house. Because we believe that no one better than us understands the sport, understands how we do things. Of course, our main partners in these are the paddlers, are the coaches, are the ones that use our product and are the major source of feedback for us to improve and to modify our boats. And we are very humble about it. So if someone tells us that our product is not okay, that means a lot for us. We not only sell boats, but we also go around the world with our boats. So if there is a major event, we have something that's called an Nello Tour. We bring boats to teams to use. So let's say that we have a World Championship in Europe. The Canada team doesn't need to bring their boats. We can rent boats for them. This is a big enterprise. So in one event, we took like almost 200 boats for that in 4 trucks. And we have a staff of 14 people there just providing service to those boats so people can make sure the boat is 100% okay for them to race. We also have training centers located in Portugal. Portugal is a great country for the sport. Our weather is pretty much reasonable all year. You can train all year, especially if you come from a northern country. We have plenty of water, so we have partnerships with the hotels that provide accommodation. We provide the service and the boats, and we bring lots of people, lots of athletes every year here to train in Portugal. Most of them we see them later in the major events in the sport. We also organize races. We have organized mostly 2 big races events per year. One more for flat water paddlers, and another one for in the ocean, when you can have, if it's a world championship year, you can have 600 athletes here from over 30 countries. This is a 20-kilometer race, downwind in the ocean, from one point to the other, and it's a very fun race. So this is who we are and what we are at the moment. But I try to bring here a subject that is a bit more into the the theme of the Congress. And I want to talk a little bit about the sprint kayak. But sprint kayak is what we are more specialized in. So I'll try to do some timeline of what the sprint kayak is doing or has been during these years. So currently, this is the top line of a sprint kayak. This is a K1. K1 is a universal term for a single-seater kayak, so everyone knows it by this name. This is one of our last generation boats. There are some rules on what this boat can be. It cannot be longer than 5.2 meters for a single-seater. If it's a two-seater, it's 6.5 meters. And if it's a four-seater, it's 11 meters. These are the only three options. There are also canoes, but the dimensions are the same. There is a minimum weight of 12 kilos, and every boat is measured before the race, and some boats are measured after the race. So this is very important to maintain, and this means to us that no boat leaves our factory weighing more than that. So usually these boats come out with 11.5 kilos around that, and then the paddler can put some ballast in the boat wherever he wants, even to trim it and reach the desired weight. And there can be no concavities on the hull, so no insets, no concave shapes on the boat. It has to be a fully convex hull. There are some other minor things, like there can be one rudder, but only one, and no fins, nothing like that. But these are the three major rules that define the boat. In terms of materials, almost anything can go. Usually no performance enhancing surfaces are allowed, but there hasn't been an issue so far. And of course, this boat is, in terms of materials, it's the top end, like carbon fibers, epoxy resin. So this is high-end composite boat structure. Of course, this is now, but how does it started? So in the first Olympics, where canoe sprint featured as a sport, it was in Berlin in 1936. I don't have many notes on the characteristics of these boats. I think they are made from wood, and there was some rules about the weight and the length, and nothing more than that. Because of course this was like the typical kayak from the time. Nothing much about it. So the next Olympics was 1948. In 1948 we have more rules that stated the kind of boat that can race on these events. They were wooden boats, and they were the major company that created this boat was Struer. Struer is was a Danish company based in Struer in Denmark, and they were known for building these wood sprint boats, of course handmade, very well made, and it was like the pinnacle of the boats at the time. They didn't start in 1948, but they started after that. But they are the most known boats for all these years. But what kind of boats were we racing at the time? They were quite different from the one I showed you before. Why? Because there was an extra rule at the time. Okay, 5.2 meters is the same, 12 kilos is the same. There was a minimum width of 51 centimeters without concavities. So what that meant, it's the designer of the boat, what they put this minimum width as high as possible, so the water line will be more thin, more shallow, and they put a little bit behind in terms of water pressure, of drag, to reduce a little bit. So we have these diamond-shaped boats. What this means is this kind of boats can be affected by lateral winds quite a bit. So you can imagine this is a high volume boat. This is a very high boat. So if there is any kind of lateral wind, it can be very disturbing for the boat. You can lose a lot of time. Also, they are much wider than they needed to be. So the paddler had to paddle very far, or quite far from the center line of the boat, so you are losing some performance there, and it is not as comfortable for the athlete to paddle. Nevertheless, they were very, very beautiful boats in wood, and they were raced until I think the last medal in Olympic game with one of these boats was in '96. So up until Atlanta, they were still used at a very high level. After that, starting in 1998, an American, Van Dusen, created what was the pinnacle of composite boats at the time. So there was composite boats before, of course. As I said, we started in 1978, and our first boats were never new. They were always glass fibers, composites with resin. But in terms of performance, in terms of what could be the high-performance boat, there was still wood. But Van Dusen started using better materials, the honeycomb. I think they even used pre-impregnated fibers. And also changed a little bit the shapes of the boats and added some new features. But this was the manufacturer that democratized the use or make people believe that composites can be used for a high-performance boat, because this was the first high-performance composites boats where athletes started using them all across the field. By this time, we will also be doing composites boats, of course. Everyone was doing that, but these boats were very, very, very good. Of course, they were very expensive, and he wasn't able to produce in large quantities. But he showed the way, paved the way for what was to come. So at the time, we were making boats like this, same shape as before. The rules were the same: fiberglass, polyester resin. Still not going to epoxy resin yet, but about this time. But we also had plans to make our own boats, make our own designs, because we wanted to be different. We want to be also our own brand. The first one was this K1 MiG. In terms of the hull, there weren't many changes on it, but the cockpit was a bit rounder, and that enabled it to be a little more comfortable for the paddler, a little more smoother as well. Although in terms of rules, it didn't break any rule, but the ruling committee, the International Canoeing Federation, banned it after a couple of years because they argued that it benefited from backwinds for the cockpit being so high and so round. But it was arguable at the time, but it wasn't what it is. Nevertheless, before it was banned, we got it to get some good results with that. This is a Portuguese paddler. This is 92 in Australia, I think Melbourne, if I'm not mistaken. He's doing a marathon race. So marathon is 30 kilometers, and they have portages, so we have to get out of the boat from time to time. And at the time, marathon didn't have a minimum weight. So this boat, this is a MiG, this is the same model as before. This boat only weighed 4 kilos or 4.5 kilos. It was made in honeycomb with fiberglass or Kevlar. Of course, the footrest and the seat were fixed to the boat, but it was like the lightest boat at the time. And it won a bronze medal, so it was like the first or biggest result the Portuguese had at the time. And the boat might help a little bit. So this was the first endeavors from us to develop new things, not only new shapes, but also new processes and new techniques to use on the boat. But the shape of the boat was still reasonably the same, still the same diamond shape with the same handicaps, as I mentioned before. But Nello thinking that, okay, maybe we can go around the rules and do something different. There must be a way to do something different than that. So he thought much about it, and he said, okay, concavities I can't have them on the hull, but maybe I can change what is the hull and what is the top, the deck of the boat. So we come up with the Mosquito. So what's the difference here? Okay, the widest part is still there, but the boat is much more sculpted. So if you just measure the hull, there are no concavities. They are all on the deck. This allows for the two things. First, on the back, as you can see, the boat is much thinner. So if there are side winds, the boat won't be much affected by them. And on the front, the paddler can paddle much closer to the beam of the boat. So that makes it much more efficient. Also, these lines of boats came with another difference. Up until now, manufacturers only have like two sizes of boats. So one boat for people up to 80 kilos, another above 80 kilos. So if you're a lady and you just weigh 60 kilos, you end up with a larger boat for you, or a larger boat for you that you need. And there is nothing thinking for just for women or for other kinds of weights. So with the Mosquito, we created a bigger range of sizes. So people from 65 or 75 or 85, 95 kilos can have a boat much more tailored for their weight. So they don't need to end up with a too bigger boat or too small of a boat. So it was also an idea to democratize a little bit the range of boats that are available. So this design, this is like the first iteration, one of the first iterations of this kind of designs, but we took it a little bit further. So, and by the end you had something like this. This is just some winglets, so we can have boats with a 51 centimeter wide, but in anything else doesn't make any sense. So this was the kind of boats, this line of Mosquito, show the world that we can be designers and can show real innovation. People started believing in us. Our competitors started copying us, and at one time, all kinds of boats from all manufacturers had some solution like this. And the International Canoe Federation said, okay, this doesn't make any sense, and they abolished the minimum width rule. This was in 99. The Mosquito was launched in 96 or 97, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when we started having another kind of boat, much closer to what we see now in the current boat design. So this was our next model, the Scorpion, white Scorpion, because he has a more lethal bite than the Mosquito. That was the tagline at the time. I didn't come up with it. So it's much more streamlined boat, and we were one of the first to be able to present a range for the new rules that put us on the forefront of the boats of the manufacturers, and we have more people starting to paddle in our boats. So if you go back to that chart, so this was like 2000s, that's also where we start getting more medals, better results, because we have more paddlers believing in our boats and paddling our boats and working on them. And the Scorpion, the Vanquish was another model that came after the Scorpion. So this is the Scorpion. As you can see, no more diamond shape, no more minimum width. The rest of the rules remain. So after that, the boats kept reasonably the same up until 2011. Not a big change in terms of boat design, but in terms of technology. Of course, by now, the boats are all carbon fiber, epoxy resin, composites with a core. But they were made in two parts. So we have the hull, the deck, you made them separate, and then you stitch them together, glue them together. In 2011, we developed a technology that we can make the boat in one piece. So when the boat is cured in the oven, it's in one piece, and when you take it out of the mold, it's one piece, is a monocoque boat. It makes it much more stiff and much stronger in terms of resistance to stretching and to all kinds of forces. So this was a development in terms of manufacturing processes for us. So in terms of innovation, we never stopped. We kept developing new boats and improving what we have. The latest big innovation we have was this model. It was the Cinco. It came out in 2015. What it had different, it had an inverse bow. So the bow, instead of being like a V shape, it was a reverse V or A shape. For a couple of reasons. First, it makes it faster to start planing. So in the acceleration phase, it's much quicker to reach the top speed, and the boat keeps the straighter line much better, so it doesn't wiggle as much. Yeah, and all our boats from then on are like this, with a reverse bow for these major advantages. So what does this translate? So this is like how the evolution of times in a 200-meter single-seater race in the Olympics. Of course, these better results are not only from the boats, of course, in terms of athlete preparation and how they approach their own physical preparation, it has been improving. But in terms of boats, we do tests, not only computer tests, but also real-world tests, and we can assess and we can confirm that the boats have been improving in terms of performance. So in 20 years, we have removed almost 1.5 seconds from 200-meter race. That is, okay, 30 seconds is a very, very short race. If nowadays you do 35 seconds in this race, you are dead last. So it has been quite an improvement. And where are we now? Now we launched a new line of high-performance boats last year. The conclusion that we have reached so far is that, okay, all over the years we usually release a new high-performance boat in every Olympic cycle. So every 4 years we usually launch a new development of our high-performance sprint race kayak. All of them has some kind of improvement or some area we want to improve. But what we found out is when we improve in one area, you usually lose in another area. And some athletes prefer the boats behaving in one way, not the other. We can make a boat that goes better on a straight line, but for some paddlers that doesn't work for them because they like to feel the boat dance a little bit more, or some paddlers like to feel the boat more stable. So what we launched last year is not one model, but 3 models. They have different characteristics in terms of how they respond to the athlete, how they behave in the water. So I don't want to say that we reach a dead end in terms of sprint kayak development, but we believe that's not easy to go much further than we have come so far, unless some big disruption comes along. But we now are offering 3 types of boat that, depending on your paddler profile, the way you like your boat set up, the way you like your boat to behave on the water, you can choose from one of them. And now we're still developing in terms of the way these boats are made. We are making strides in terms of infusion, in terms of process, because we now use wet layup. And we're trying new materials. We also are making progress in terms of making these boats more sustainable. Much of the carbon fiber used in our boats is now recycled, and we send the other one to recycle. The foams are recycled. So we'll try to incorporate these more sustainable materials in high-performance boats. That's not easy because as being high-performance, everything has to be top-notch, but we are being able to introduce them bit by bit and making developments on those areas. And we believe that in the near future we will have a much lesser footprint in terms of all our boats. And so we're now getting ready for Paris next year. And if you, by any chance, see one of the races, make sure to look for us because we might be there. So that's it from me. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm here.
I don't know if anyone has any questions that would like to present. I know this is a very different topic. Well, we already have one. I don't know if you don't mind answering the questions. I would much oblige.
Yeah. Sure.
It's not really a question, but just a comment. It's really interesting to hear this, and I'm just thinking about how much innovation happens so quickly when it comes to boats, right? We just saw in 60 years all of these different changes. As archaeologists, we are thinking in terms of hundreds of years, and just imagine all of the innovation and changes that can happen in boats. We were talking today about thickness holes and shapes of canoes and so forth, but boats are innovating so quickly. So it's just a reminder of that to hear your presentation.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Also, your core business is not the wood shipbuilding or wood canoe building, it's composite. I have this doubt or this question. What kind of structure or inner structure those canoes made of wood have? Or they do just glue the plankings? Do you know? Do you have any idea?
I think they have like internal caverns, internal structures. They have an outer layer of veneer. Yeah. They have the internal skeleton and then another inside. I think I'm not sure because that's really not my expertise.
It's not your expertise.
But I think they were made of like this. As a side note, I didn't mention this, but we currently make wood boats. They are wooden because we have bought the rights to make straw boats, and we made them using modern techniques. So we use a mahogany veneer outside and inside with composites core and with epoxy resin. So they look the same as before, with better durability, better maintenance. But in terms of those old canoes, we have one original there, and I think they have like those beams of wood, and then they are stapled around.
Okay, and the boats made of wood that you do, that use mahogany in all of the, just for the framing or the also?
No, just for the outside layer and inside layer. So yes. They look inside and outside mahogany, but just the core is modern composites. So they are stronger. They are of course easier to build within our manufacturing process. And with the advantages of modern composites like epoxy resin and these foams that can make it a bit more durable, easier to repair, and a better product overall with the look and feel that is associated with the wood boat. But it's really wood on the outside and inside, so it's not fake wood, it's real wood.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just a doubt, but the veneer that you use, a mahogany veneer, it's a common veneer with 1 or 2 millimeters of thickness?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thickness is less than that. Much. I don't think it's even 1 millimeter. It's very, very thin. Yeah, but it's common because as it's embedded in the resin, it will last. And of course, the boats are varnished outside.
Okay.
Very interesting presentation. Thank you. Could you explain about the one-piece construction? I understand with two-piece construction you'd be using female molds. I can't figure out how you would do it in one piece. The female mold obviously isn't going to work.
No, it's the secret. I don't know if you're going to the factory tomorrow. We'll have a.
Tomorrow we'll have a visit.
I don't know if
planned for the factory, for the Nello factory. So you probably will be able to see for yourself some of the steps that they are using in the factory currently.
Yeah, but I can explain roughly. So we have female molds, outside molds of the boats. They are we made it in wet layup, so they are laid up like that. But there are some fibers, some materials. There are a little bit oversized. So when you close it, they are gonna interconnect, and they're gonna make a whole surface. So we make sure that although we made them like this separate, when they put them together, there is some interjoining of all the composites. So, and the resin, of course, we're going to cure as one. So, all thing will function as a single structure.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question, and in this one, I'm unashamedly waving the Irish flag here. There was, in one of the more recent Olympic events, we had two brothers from the south of Ireland that were in the tandem kayak competition. And I believe maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that they had broken some Olympic records in their race. When they were interviewed afterwards and asked, well, how did they do it? One of them said, we pulled like dogs. But I'm just wondering, maybe you might be able to say, do they use one of your boats, and maybe that was a contributory sort of factor to it?
They probably did, but I'm not sure, so yes, I'm not going to claim it.
Donovan brothers, okay, yeah, okay.
No, but you're touching interesting points. It's what is the weight of the boat in terms of performance? What's the importance of the boat? So those two guys, I should not be saying this in public, but those two guys probably put in another boat, they will break the record or win nevertheless. But what we also try to give our paddlers, our customers, is the confidence. So if you feel there is something wrong with the boat, we can change it. We can customize it for your needs. We can make sure everything is working properly. So when you sit on the boat, you are perfectly comfortable on your boat, and you're comfortable in your performance. You don't have to worry about something else. Sometimes that is more important than the pure speed of the boat by itself. Of course, we have data that can show that our boats are better than the others, but I personally believe that most of the times the major importance is the belief you have in the equipment and making sure you have the perfect boat for the job. So I think that's the most important thing.
So I believe what we're trying to say is that they are trying to take the boat out of the equation. The boat doesn't exist, exactly. It's just them.
It's just a part of your body, it's just a continuation of it.
Yeah. I don't know if there is any more question. If not, I would like to thank you, Nuno, for your presentation and for your presence in this Congress, who gives us a fresh look about the canoes. We are always looking to the past and imagining how the canoes would be in the past, and this is what it is and what probably will be in the nearest future. So thank you for your presentation, and thank you all for this magnificent day that we had. I hope you enjoy it. We will be finishing this first day in a few minutes. But I would like just to give a bit of information that we didn't relay to you earlier. So, for those of you who were wondering about the certificate of the Congress, it will be issued to you at the end. We'll be providing you that certificate. And in relation with for all of you that is booked for the dinner, we would be coming together at the front of the building at 7 p.m. so we can walk to the restaurant then. And I believe it's pretty much it. Oh, yeah, someone is reminding me something. The hour will be changing soon, so we have a change in the time. So be aware of that, so that we are not, when it happens, we are not thinking that we are in 1 hour when we really are in another. So pay attention to that, so that no one misses anything that is important. So I believe it's from Saturday to Sunday, the time will change. Okay, I don't know if we are gaining or losing an hour or something, but be aware of that. So, if everyone is happy with what we have done until now, we would close this session and restart tomorrow morning. And for those of you who will be joining us for dinner, please be at the front of the building at 7. Okay? Thank you all.